everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 66 for the week of March 1st, 2020. I'm your host, Drew, and I am joined by Will. I was like...
Is that my co-host name?
I guess.
Is it Will?
Who am I with this week? I don't even know. Why are we walking like this?
Dude, it's like Willem Dafoe. Like, so many people say William Dafoe, and every single time I just want to strangle them.
What about like people who like they have like a nickname or they, like, for example, Matthew McConaughey. Nobody calls him Matt. It's always Matthew.
Yeah, it's like Matt Damon, same kind of thing. Like, his name is probably Matthew.
Right.
I mean, it might not be. It's like Will Smith. I'm pretty sure Will Smith is a rare case where his name is actually just Will Smith.
Is it?
I think so.
I gotta Google this.
Might have to find out.
Will Smith.
But I'm pretty sure like his first name is definitely just Will.
It's Willard.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
I mean,
God damn it.
Who would have guessed it's Willard, though?
Yeah. I mean, it's like Tom Cruise, like most actors' names they sound like actors' names. Like, they sound cool.
Did you?
And generally they're modified.
Did you know that in a previous life, when I was in my band, the Stormfront, we had a song that used Tom Cruise's name multiple times?
Huh. Like just the name Tom Cruise or like his birth name?
Just the name Tom Cruise.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Cool.
I'll have to explain that sometime. Anyway, how are you?
I'm well, man. I've got a coconut water with mango, no caffeine this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I haven't had one of these in a long time, so Lauren was nice enough to buy a couple. So almost done with that. And outside of that, I'm well. How about you?
It's been a very interesting weekend. Did some filming yesterday for a short film. And I think everything went fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing the final edit of the video, and then I can get my hands dirty and start working on the audio side of things. But it was a late night. I didn't get home until about 1:30. And I woke up about 8 o'clock this morning, had some stuff to do, took a quick nap, and then kind of took the rest of the day to myself. And it was pretty nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty refreshed. Spent some time at the local coffee shop, did some writing. It was nice.
That's good. It sounds like you've definitely needed this, like you've been overdue.
I have been. And, I want to try and get in the habit of at least I would like to say every other week, but realistically, probably every 3 weeks. Basically, I'm not available that day.
Yeah.
For anything. And I feel bad saying no to people. But I just really I desperately needed a day to myself. And today I took it.
Dude, that's so massive, man. I'm such a self-care kind of person, and I really believe in it. Mm-hmm. And it's so vital, I think, in the world that we live in. So if anybody out there listening can take one day off from everything, or at least a portion of one day a week, then you're already doing more than most. And I think it's just a really powerful thing to implement into your life.
I think for me, what really helps center me is putting pen to paper. Specifically pen or pencil, but preferably pen to paper. The act of doing an analog function like writing really helps center me. And we spend all of our lives on computers at work, using our phones. And in our case, we're a video game podcast, so we spend a decent amount of time playing video games or not playing them. But,
sad but true.
Yeah. I think getting to our roots, and doing something physically tangible, is super important to, our mental health. And, for me, just writing. I'm not an artist as far as painting or drawing or anything like that goes. That's not in my wheelhouse, but I like to write. I like to journal. And it just really helps me kind of put myself right.
I love it, man.
So,
I love to hear, stories like this where somebody can do something such as journaling, which is something that's been going on for years. And now that it's coming to the forefront again in such a digital age, I think it's proving something. It's proving that some of those methods still work. And it's kind of like, I hate to relate it to something like, working out, but it's just kind of what I thought of. Like, when you go to the gym, if you do their core exercises like pull-ups and push-ups and stuff, they generally produce results because they're tried and true methods. And I think journaling is certainly in that same category.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the next step, is getting my physical well-being in line with my mental well-being. But the mental is really something that I have the most difficult time with. So that's been my focus right now. Once I can get that kind of in place, then I'm going to try to circle back and start doing some sort of a fitness routine. I bought Ring Fit. I used it a couple times, and then I pulled a muscle or something. Wasn't feeling too well, so I kind of took a break, a step away from it. And, I've been thinking about getting back into it. I really want to start doing it because I never really got the ball rolling with it, And now the weather's getting nicer. We had beautiful weather today. It was like a 60-degree day for, most of the afternoon. Perfect day for walking. I didn't do that. I did some other stuff. I don't feel like it was a waste. I don't feel guilty about not being outside, but it would have been a good opportunity to go for a walk or for a jog. And, that's on the horizon. So, yeah.
Good. Yeah, it's all about baby steps, man.
One day at a time, right?
That's it.
So, anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in to the Mental Health and Wellness Podcast starring Drew and Will. we have a website, www.wdgrpodcast.com, where you can check out everything that we're doing, including episodes of this podcast, Will's bi-weekly blog called Will's Cool Games, which the most recent one features Metal Gear Solid. And you can check out my blog, Dear Backlog, as well as Music Monday and all other kinds of cool stuff. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast. That's at WDGRPodcast. Will, if somebody would like to harass you, how can they do so?
Will_Gear on Twitter.
All right. You can find me at ScionStorm. What do you say we hit the mailbag?
Let's hit it up.
If you have any questions you'd like to submit to our mailbag, swing on by our Discord room. The link for that is in the show notes. We'd love to see you. Stop on by and say hello. So let's start with Raffy Fatfingers, who sent in a couple questions. He says, what are your thoughts on Larian Studios, the Belgian-based creators of Divinity Original Sin and the new Baldur's Gate? They seem to be doing a great job in a space where BioWare previously made their name. Wouldn't be surprised if someone like Microsoft picked them up to create something akin to Dragon's Age. So we'll start with that question first. I feel like a horrible gamer, but I have never played Divinity or Baldur's Gate, despite kind of being surrounded by it. I had a lot of friends that were really into that game. Do you have any experience with it?
I have very little. I do know that when Original Sin or Divinity Original Sin came out, I was hearing that it was one of the best RPGs ever, which was obviously definitely caught my attention.
Yeah.
Because that's not something you want to toss around lightly.
No.
And Tom, actually, who's been on the show, Jefferson James, he has that game, and I did get a chance to see him play it the last time I saw him. So that would have been last year. And it's very Diablo-like. It's that same kind of dungeon siege sort of deep, dark dungeon crawler kind of game.
Right.
Which is not really my kind of cup of tea, but it's kind of cool to watch somebody play.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot going on, and there's certainly a lot of strategy, and there's some cool stuff. But that's about all I really know. And as far as Baldur's Gate, I really don't know. I don't know too much.
Baldur's Gate is kind of along the same lines, although I think it sounds like there's some teasing of I think Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, so Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be coming out sometime in the near future. It's a wildly popular series, but I'm not a fan of orcs and dragons and stuff like that. So this has never been a game that's on my radar.
Yep, that's pretty much the same reason for me.
So sorry to disappoint you, Raph. And that goes akin to Dragon Age as well, too. I recognize that BioWare made some great games in that series, but Dragon's Age just the subject matter and the universe is not something I'm into. It's not in outer space. It's not reality based. It's a section of I just don't like fantasy. I don't like fantasy. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, it just, you reminded me of myself, because sometimes when I say things twice in a row, it's usually because I really want to make sure people definitely fucking heard me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've discussed this. If you know, we have 66 episodes. I'm positive I've addressed this at least once. So, Raph, fucking listen up, man. He also asks, are you buying one of the new consoles right at launch? Both? How will you decide? This might have been asked already, but I forget. Personally, I'll probably get both eventually, but the first one will depend on what multiplayer games my friends will be playing and on what.
I mean, this one's easier for me. I think I've exhausted my feelings about what I like in terms of vendor. It's definitely Sony, so PS5 is either going to be day one or month one for me. Mm-hmm. I probably won't get the new Xbox unless there's a strong reason to do so.
What about Hellblade?
Hellblade?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, damn it. You know, it's tough. I think that one I can certainly wait on. I'd rather just kind of see like how it does first. I don't see that as something that I need to play day one, and I don't know if my latest consensus is that I need that console for that game. If it never, ever, ever sees the light of day on any other console, which obviously we won't know for years, then, you know, that might be a reason to get it and play it. But that's a tough one, man, because I really liked the first game and I really want to play the second. So I'm going to leave that one up in the air.
You know, I think in your case, it's a case where, you know, waiting, I think, for a system revision or a price drop would probably be in your best interest for that.
Yeah, and you know, to kind of address your question here, Raph, in terms of how will I decide, I mean, it's a two-part answer. I would say Sony, like I mentioned already, and I'm, you know, fairly certain that one of my games that I'm looking forward to, like Ghost of Tsushima, games like that, those are going to be hopefully launch titles. If that's the case, then that's probably going to be my decision maker on top of the fact that it's the PlayStation.
Right. I'd like to think that, you know, at some point I would be able to afford both systems at launch, but the reality is I have about $10,000 in sewer repairs that I have to go through right now. So, yeah, we're hoping. I'm hoping that I'll be able to afford the Xbox. I would like to pick up the new Xbox at launch. I was fortunate enough to get an Xbox One at launch, and it was pretty fucking cool. I've been with that system since literally day one. In fact, my Xbox was a day one edition Xbox, and unfortunately that system passed away. So I no longer have it, but it was pretty awesome. Watching that Xbox kind of go through its growing pains, and I don't know, I miss a lot of features that it had that are no longer in there. You know, the Kinect was basically reduced to being absolutely worthless, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was very powerful. And there were games that relied on it too. Like there's a Zumba game that I bought for Nikki that she can't even play anymore because the Kinect that I have is not compatible with the Xbox One X unless you bought a adapter that is no longer available. So I have two Zumba games that are just completely useless.
Jeez.
So that sucks. But other than that, though, yeah, if I can find a way to get it in the budget, I'll buy the Xbox on day one. PlayStation, I'll probably hold off on. I will buy one at some point, but just generally speaking, I like the ecosystem of the Xbox much better than the PlayStation, and I was kind of reminded of that again today when I was trying to find something in the PlayStation Store. And, you know, I just don't have much faith in Sony to fix their shit. I'm sure the system will be great, but Xbox, like, between their live service, their interfaces, and their willingness to listen to their fans, they just fucking knock it out of the park. in my opinion. And yeah, maybe the game selection isn't as great right now. You know, like I think Sony has the Xbox beat in terms of exclusives by 1.5 miles. But when I turn on my Xbox, I don't have to wait 6 hours to download a game so I could play it.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's huge.
That goes a long way when often I only have half an hour to an hour to play in the first place.
Yeah.
So, yep, that's where I stand. Let's see here. Raph has one other question. He's a chatty motherfucker today. What do you want to see? What do you want to see from Final Fantasy 16? What if they made the whole game similar to the start of 15, essentially doing a Final Fantasy 16 Skyrim? I don't get the Final Fantasy 16 Skyrim reference. Is that something that you can kind of...
No. There's such a weird, sick desperation in my my response there. No, yeah. Jesus. No, I read this earlier, and I wasn't too sure how to really size this one up. I am not super familiar with Final Fantasy 15, even though I did play a portion of it, and I understand like that it was essentially not very well received. In terms of 16, I'm not really thinking in that direction right now. I think a lot of people's focus is on 7 Remake. And then in terms of Skyrim, like doing a Final Fantasy 16 Skyrim, I think overall, man, like this question is kind of hard for me to answer because I just don't really exactly know where you're going with it.
Yeah.
If you're saying that it's like, do we want to see like a Final Fantasy like with Skyrim elements? I mean, I guess my answer would be sure. But I would like to see, I can tell you this, actually. I would like to see what we were supposed to get from 15. And I know I spoke about this before. I added some videos a few weeks back, and that game looked amazing. And then, of course, what we got was something very different.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, those videos made me sad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the way 15 starts, you know, you have... this bond with these 4 friends, and it kind of essentially brings you on like a road trip. You know, they're trying to get back home, and I don't remember the details of the whys and the wheres and the whats. You know, it doesn't really matter, I suppose. But it very much starts out like a road trip, and you know, if I recall correctly, like their car broke down or they're out of gas or something, and they're pushing it back to the garage, and the characters really had great chemistry with each other in a way that I hadn't seen in a video game in a long, long time. Especially so quickly and right off the bat. Whoever wrote the characters, whoever wrote the scripts for them, understood male relationships, I think, in a very strong way. So that was one of the more enjoyable parts of the game. Unfortunately, as you kind of got into the game, you started to realize that that's really kind of all there was. And there wasn't much else. I would like to think that at some point I'll put some more time into FF15, but the reality is time is so limited, probably won't.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I was given that game from a friend, and he was nice enough to mail it to me. Thanks, Miles, if you're listening. And yeah, you know, I still have it, but it's just it's a timing thing. It's exactly what you said. I started it. There was like, I sort of enjoyed what I played, which really wasn't much. But I kind of just said, all right, this is cool. Like, you know, the usual, like, let me get back to this when I feel a little bit more ready. And it just never happened. So it's kind of a shame. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but it's there.
Fair enough. All right, moving on. Vortex says, I bought Rainbow Six Siege and the new Call of Duty. Siege is good and fun, but I feel as though the network code on that game isn't great. It's good, but it needs to be better. Call of Duty is Call of Duty. You've played one, you've played them all. This is a remaster of Modern Warfare, COD 4. I always laugh when I say COD instead of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
COD blops.
Oh, Jesus. No Scope 360.
He says it's a remaster of Modern Warfare, but with new updates. The updates are very well done. Don't take away from the original game. No stupid super suits and dumb weapons, just plain Call of Duty. It's my guilty pleasure when I'm playing the shit. When I'm playing like shit in other games, I like to go in and just kill people with that, in that with ease. I hadn't played Call of Duty in so long, I forgot how quick it is. It is a twitch shooter, and I enjoy it sometimes. Also keeps your reflexes sharp. Huge contrast from PUBG, where everything is slow and methodical with some bursts of energy. And he leads into a question. Anyway, what is your guilty pleasure game that you're sort of ashamed of, but not really? What makes you go, wow, I can't believe I'm playing this and having fun?
This sort of reminds me of that question that Raph left for us, and we answered it with food, or at least I did initially. But I can say that my answer is still kind of no, or still kind of I don't really have one. However, I was looking at the PlayStation Store today because I do have like a $7 something credit from buying BF5, and I was thinking, oh, where can I just zap out this $7 real quick on the store, and I know I'm going to be able to scoop something up for $7 or less. And I did see a couple games on there that I could see myself playing and having them absolutely be a guilty pleasure, like Bee Simulator. And then maybe like a farming simulator. And you know what? I don't care if somebody's judging me right now when you guys listen to this. Judge all you want, but I think what I need is something like that. I want to be able to come home from work, maybe have a shitty kind of day, and become a bumblebee for a couple hours and just, pull some pollen off some dandelions or some shit and feel pretty good about it and also feel guilty. And then hopefully on the next time somebody asks us this, I'll be able to answer with Bumblebee Simulator.
Bumblebee Simulator.
That's the episode.
I was a big fan of a PC game called Prison Architect. Basically, are you familiar with it at all? Or
no?
You build a prison and you maintain it. And I got in on the ground floor with that game when it was still in an alpha phase. So I kind of got to participate with them as they started adding new features and everything. And this is by, I can't think of the name of the dev right now, but the game was developed by the same people who did Darwinia and a couple other games too, DEF CON. So they're really kind of big on like strategy games, weird strategy games, indie studio. They sold the game off and now another company has it, and I haven't really gone back to it, but I must have put like 200 hours into this game on Steam. I would just play for hours and hours and hours, and like, you had to build a prison, but you also had to like maintain this prison when you have like, rowdy prisoners that are trying to like get contraband inside the prison and, shank each other and get into fights. And, you have to make sure that there's janitors cleaning the place and, get them laundry. And it was a super deep game, and it was very, very well balanced and constantly being balanced and constantly getting new features. And eventually they even put a campaign in it. It used to be just kind of like a sandbox thing, and then they just kind of made it better and better and better. And, it was really fucking cool. I haven't played it in a couple years, but I know that if I fire that up again, I'll just fall right back into that trap. And it's like, I just never thought that I'd be playing a game about building and maintaining a prison for so long. And I put, I want to say like 200 hours in.
I believe it, man. I mean, there are games like that are so simplistic and maybe have something that you're doing that's kind of like mundane or tedious, but in such a way that you just kind of want to keep going. Generally, those games have a lot of pull, something that I've talked about from the beginning of the show. And I think that's okay, man. It's okay to play like a farming simulator or a flight simulator or just anything that like isn't like a AAA game,
Right.
Play something that you can get kind of hooked on and maybe have it as a guilty pleasure, and so be it, man.
I know there's a lot of PC gamers out there that like the Twitch, type gameplay. Mouse and keyboard is really conducive for first-person shooters and games that require a lot of fast-paced reactions, because you can, dial up the sensitivity on the mouse. And for me, it's the opposite. Like, I like to sit in front of the computer and just kind of relax and play a game that like has some breathing space to it. And although Prison Architect wasn't even close to being simple, is the type of game that you can pause issue commands, kind of take your time. And it wasn't like overly reactionary. Like I could slow down or speed up time at will and give myself the pace that I wanted depending on the situation. So it was really clever in that way. Let's see here. Vic also asks, FF7 Remastered demo is out and all, but how does it make you feel knowing that you're only going to be playing like 10 to 20% of the game on release and have to buy separate instances whenever or however long that might take? Would you wait until all episodes are out, or would you buy it right away and just wait for the rest?
This is an interesting one. I mean, you've brought this up quite a bit, Drew, and I'm still kind of bothered by it a little bit. Not too sure like what my final opinion on the whole matter is, like in terms of the game being episodic. But yeah, I'm torn, I think, really. I obviously, like the rest of us, will have to deal with the episodic format if it's going to stay that way. So there's not much we can really do there. But in order to answer this, I think I probably would play it in sections on release. I don't think I'd be able to wait for everything to come out because I am fairly eager to play this because I still have not beaten the original game. So yeah, I think my answer would be I would play them as they come out. Maybe not necessarily day one, but I don't know if I'd be able to wait for everything.
Yeah. So I played the demo. I did download it today. I played it. The demo was about an hour long. And I recommend you check it out. If you can find it on the fucking PlayStation Store, because when I typed in Final Fantasy, it was not listed. I had to like go digging through into a demos page, and then I guess later on they finally added it to like the new and hot page. But that aside, I'm conflicted because first of all, it's gorgeous. I mean, absolutely beautiful. It's fast, it's responsive. I don't know what the frame rate is, but it seemed pretty stable. I don't recall it dropping at all. And I'm playing on a base PlayStation 4, by the way. But the game kind of, it brought back a lot of the feels from back in 1997 when I played it for the first time. The music is like, it just invokes like such a feeling and emotion, and everything just, it feels very familiar, and yet at the same time, it feels completely fucking different. The battle system that they have implemented, or that they encourage you to use, is nothing like the original battle system. It's like you're playing a whole different game, because you're trying to control two characters at once in an active battle situation rather than issuing commands through a series of menus. Now that mode is available as well. You can play the game that way if you'd like to. I haven't tried it, so I'm not sure how well they executed that. But I can tell you that the mode that they encourage doesn't feel like Final Fantasy at all to me. Or if anything, it feels more like Final Fantasy 15. It doesn't feel like Final Fantasy 7. It's just, as when I was playing as Cloud, I was basically constantly attacking. I felt like I was button mashing the attack button almost the entire time. And then like they give you opportunities to issue commands. You have to basically earn the right to use magic or earn the right to use, a special attack. And then, you do have your limit breaks, but the commands can get interrupted. So like I could say, if I'm dying, I can go to use a potion, and if somebody hits me while I'm in the middle of that command, I lose the ability to use that potion. I have to earn the right to get that again, and that was like really jarring for me. I didn't really care much for that. So gameplay wise, it's a little tricky. I'm not entirely sold on the game yet. And that being said, when we're looking at only receiving 10 to 20% of the game, or whatever we don't know how many episodes they're going to do. If they just release the entire Midgar section, that's a pretty good chunk of the game. That's like an entire disc. So I don't think it's going to be insubstantial, but is it worth $60? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like, and that's the part that I'm struggling with, because getting 30 to 40 hours out of a game for $60 is pretty good if you think about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think that's a respectable playtime, but it's still not the complete game. So, like, are we getting to the point now? I mean, I know there's some people that are willing to pay hundreds of dollars for collector's editions, but they're getting the entire game. Are you willing to are you willing to pay hundreds of dollars for an entire game? It's kind of I think, an interesting discussion.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And this is where I still just feel kind of torn by it. It reminds me a little bit of the Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, and then the actual game after that.
Right.
Because there was a controversy surrounding that situation, which I chose to ignore for the most part because I'm a hardcore fan and I don't really care. But I can understand why people were like, dude, really? Like, Ground Zeroes is like a preamble to the final game, and it was super short.
Right.
It is packed with content. Like, if you really exhaust Ground Zeroes, there's a lot of content there, but you kind of have to just know what to do. And I'm pretty sure it was like either $30 or $40 for essentially like a 60-minute experience. And yeah, and then the game came out for 60. So it reminds me a little bit of that.
Sure. I mean, I think that's a good comparison.
So yeah, I mean, with all that being said, man, I just don't know. I don't know enough about how this is all going to work because I've done very little research on pricing and the whole episodic format. I've only just kind of heard bits and bytes from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, there's been no announcement on how many parts this will be. The game is coming out with a premium price tag of $60 for the base version of it. They have, limited collector's editions at like 2 or 3 different tiers. So you could drop up to, I want to say $120 to $150, depending on which version you get. But that's only the first section of the game. It's basically disc 1. So as Final Fantasy VII was a 3-disc game, you're basically getting disc 1 for that price. Maybe a little bit, give or take. But if I had a guess, I bet you it'll be the same. I bet you it'll be disc 1. So who knows when disc 2 is going to come out? There's been nothing about that. We have no evidence that it even exists, that they're even working on it.
I know it's just kind of, I don't know, man. It's a little bit alarming. I'm not too sure if people really understand like what's going on.
I don't think so.
That makes me a little nervous because I think there's a lot of people that I can guarantee right now don't have a clue about what we're talking about right now. They think the whole game's coming out.
Oh, 100%.
There's no way that like you're just your average gamer, and I'm not saying that like, oh, your average gamer is not smart as we are. It's nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that as far as I'm concerned, I really have not seen any information that's been readily available on like social media talking about how this release is supposed to work. It's more about like, hey, the demo's out, and before that happened, it was like, check out this footage and this is when the game comes out. And unless I'm not reading between the lines, I have not seen anything about this. I'm
looking at the sales page for Amazon for this game, Final Fantasy VII Remake PlayStation 4. You don't know that it's like the 4th or 5th line down. It says the first entry in a multi-part saga, delivering a level of depth inconceivable for the original game. It's the 5th bullet point. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, 4th bullet point out of 5.
Okay.
Now I don't know what the back of the box says, but looking at the cover. The cover art gives no indication that this is multi-part. Right.
Like I said, man, I mean, I'm concerned. I want to spend some more time just reading about the way that this is going to pan out. Whatever information is out there, I'd like to just kind of study up on it a little bit more. But yeah, generally I'm a little bit concerned for the public and potentially myself.
Yeah. I think it's a valid concern.
Because, we've waited, I don't know how long for this, and sure, it's been a long time, and yes, we were supposed to get it some time ago, and they canceled it, blah, blah, blah. I know all that stuff, and I'm sure it's all worth the wait, but I think the way that a game is released is sometimes pretty damn important.
I agree, 100%. And then you have a studio like Cyberpunk that's like, you're going to get the entire game, and we're going to support, we're going to support the game once it's released on the new Xbox, and you'll get the, updated graphics and everything at no additional charge. And, like you're getting a complete package from CD Projekt Red.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that right now I could pre-order that on Amazon for $50, not $60. So it's already $10 cheaper,
There you go.
Anyway, Drat says, do you guys think that certain games and console release dates will get pushed back because of the coronavirus scare, mainly because they aren't able to be present at cons to show and demonstrate them? Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's the whole coronavirus thing, or I forget what the actual
COVID-19 or whatever.
Yeah, there's two different camps really that are calling it one thing or the other, whatever. The whole point is, I've done some research. It seems to be pretty fucking serious. It's fairly scary, what's actually happening if it's all true. And, a lot of places, companies, businesses, people are starting to get concerned about how it's going to affect certain aspects of life, not just their own, but how it's going to affect these kind of things. So, Tio, I think, valid question. I think that it certainly could impact these kind of things. Hopefully it doesn't.
Right.
But it fucking could.
Yeah.
It could.
I mean, my understanding is the virus itself isn't any worse than a common cold. If somebody that's healthy and, in relatively fit shape gets it, it's really only lethal to infants and elderly, but it seems to be spreading pretty rapidly. So I don't know. My information could be wrong, but that's what I've read.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's already shortages coming out of Asian countries for a lot of different goods. There are studios that are going to close their doors until this is taken care of to avoid the spread, because you have to consider that a lot of people live with their extended family, so if you have elderly parents in your house, that's not good. And if this is something that is easily passed along, that's not good. So, I think GDC, Games Developers Conference, I don't think that's happening this year, or something of that nature. Pucks in the chat was talking about that, GDC. Let's see here. So that's supposed to be in March. I know so it got postponed. It was supposed to run from March 16th to the 20th. It is not taking place. And that's a pretty big event. There's a lot of developers that attend that and make pretty big announcements, and it could have an impact on E3 as well.
It could. It absolutely could. Right now, I think Sony's not coming to E3, right? Hasn't that been confirmed?
It has, but that wasn't related to the virus. They weren't at E3 last year either.
Right. No, I know it's not related. It's just I was thinking they're already not coming. Mm-hmm. So if something like that happened, then that's already maybe another company not coming as well. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think this is such a controversial topic, and I just don't really know. I don't know what's going to happen, but it certainly could be a problem. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think it is already a problem. Between the cons and studios closing for health reasons, I absolutely think we're going to see more delays.
I think so.
Bearman says, I'm currently doing a nostalgia playthrough of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Are there any games from your past that you haven't played in a while that you've been thinking about picking up again? Good topic. That is one of the games that I've been thinking of, actually.
Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah, I loved KOTOR 1. I don't think I ever played the second one. I always wanted to.
Yeah, I've heard really good things over the years. And when I say over the years, I mean for many, many years. Mm-hmm. Because that game came out what, 2002 or 3, right?
Sounds about right. Let's see.
Actually, might have been 04, but it was certainly in that time period, I believe.
Knights of the Old Republic came out 2003 for the Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, that was a long time ago.
Yep.
So to hear about it from then up until now, people still mention it here and there. I mean, it's certainly something that I'd love to explore. I've never been a big Star Wars video game guy. I've had my time with Episode 1 Racer on the 64. I swear by that game. And a few other games here and there. Super Star Wars games on SNES are amazing.
Really difficult.
Very difficult, but I loved them.
Yeah.
Absolutely cherished them as a kid. But yeah, I've never really played anything that's that RPG kind of style, and from what I understand, it's very Mass Effect-like.
I mean, similar to, I would say, Mass Effect 1, as far as, like, combat goes. I mean, it's the same studio, so, you know, that they intrinsically have a style of game that they do, BioWare. You know, and if you played Jade Empire, it's similar to Jade Empire in that way, too. I think KOTOR came out before Jade Empire. Great games, you know. The Star Wars franchise has not always done well with video games. They are very hit or miss. Some of the Star Wars games are just absolute junk, and some of them are absolute gold. This is one of the ones that's absolute gold. So
yeah,
definitely worth taking the time to play. And if I recall correctly, it has a hell of a plot twist. So I won't spoil that for you, but I think it's worth your time.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, I definitely want to include Shadows of the Empire. I just want to make sure that people are aware for the 100th time that I love that game. And I'd love to see a remake or a remaster, anything. Just bring that fucking game back. But yeah, no, one other thing. You are absolutely right. There are some really, really shitty Star Wars games.
Yeah.
And there are some really good ones. It's just about playing around with whatever floats your boat.
To actually answer Bearman's question, because we've kind of dodged it, actually.
Not surprised.
I'd love to circle back to the Half-Life games and go through those again. It's been a very long time since I've played them. Half-Life 2 is, you know, top 5 for me of all time.
Okay. It's very respectable.
Kind of looking around my room. KOTOR is a game I'd like to play. Final Fantasy VII, I wouldn't mind replaying the original, but I mean, there's probably no point in doing that now. There's a couple TurboGrafx games I wouldn't mind replaying. And then there's a lot of old games that I've started but never beaten or never had access to that I would like to play. Chrono Trigger, Super Metroid, Final Fantasy VI, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. It's such again, a loaded question because there's just so many answers and so many different avenues to go down. But I would say, going off the Star Wars thing, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace for PS1, I would love to explore.
Was that a game that you had previously?
I have it.
All right.
Yeah, I have it. It's a weirdly, strangely angled top-down kind of experience. I might have mentioned it once or twice in the show in the past, but it's a very overlooked Star Wars game, but a lot of people swore by it, and I'm one of those people. I think that it was well done. It looked really good. It played well. It probably doesn't hold up to today's standards by any means, but it's one of those games that I feel like is like a sort of in-between horrible and really good. And technically Shadows of the Empire was kind of the same. I mean, the game is kind of shitty at times, but for the most part it's charming, and I could go off on a tangent on that one.
Yeah, that's a game that has been fondly looked back on over the years.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one. Finally, last question of the evening. What is from Joe Donuts? What is your snobbiest, snootiest, pretentious hipster gaming opinion? I.e., Sonic games were never good. Metal Gear Solid 1 is the only good Kojima game, etc.
This is a really good one.
I'll piggyback on that MGS1 thing.
Sure. Do you want to go first or?
Super Smash Brothers isn't a fighting game.
Okay. Agreed. Heavily agreed.
Let's see here.
Hate me now, folks. Hate me now.
Super Mario Brothers is overrated.
Okay. Respect.
Could probably dig up a couple more. Let's see here. You go. Let me think of a couple.
Sure. I agree with the Mario thing as well as Smash Brothers wholeheartedly. I cannot stand that game. It doesn't sicken me, but it really bothers me that people get so hyped about like a new character release for that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. In terms of like, I don't know if if I'm in the mindset to trash like any games, because you're starting out with kind of trashing opinions.
Yeah.
I can say that I am like definitely very snobby about Metal Gear Solid for obvious reasons. I'm a huge fan. Everybody knows that. And I do think that Hideo Kojima created a masterpiece with that franchise, and I don't know if he's ever going to be able to top it. I know a lot of people are talking about Death Stranding for all of its, purposes, but I am very snobby about Metal Gear, and I believe that it's one of the greatest stories in video game history. And some people think that that's kind of gloating, or maybe it's just a little bit sort of, I don't know, preposterous. But I disagree. I think a lot of people agree with me on that, but there's definitely some people that think that it's a little bit overrated, and I try to defend that franchise to the death most of the time. So I guess that's kind of my answer.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can understand why you would too. When you have a game or a franchise that you love, like you want to kind of defend it, even when it's been through its bad spells. I think it's just natural. If you have a band that you're like massively into and they put out a shitty album, you want to defend that album, even though maybe deep down inside that it's not necessarily the best album. I was vehement. Was it vehement? I'm sorry. I was really big on defending the Matrix trilogy after Reloaded and Revolutions came out, and it took me about 15 years to realize that maybe I was wrong.
Yeah.
So I've kind of backed off on that stance in hindsight, but like people would talk bad about that game. I'd be like, no, or that movie. I'd be like, no, that was a great movie. I'm trying to think if there's any other gaming examples. Twisted Metal 2 is the best Twisted Metal, or actually the best car combat game of all time. I guess that's not really a hipster thing. There's... Yeah, go ahead.
Just to interject, just before I forget this, just to kind of circle back to the Metal Gear thing, because I know hipsters love to talk about how like they were one of the first people to like discover something. I feel that way about Kojima, and I feel like I understood this. Oh my God, this is going to sound so fucking disgusting. I feel like I understood like his genius a long time ago. And maybe it's not so disgusting. I just feel like I was very aware of who he was because I was such a fan of the series, right? So I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, but I definitely saw that this guy was something special. And I kind of knew in the back of my own personal thoughts and mind and dreams that he was going to, make amazing games.
Right.
And now in 2020, and even in the last like 2-3 years, he has been such a popular figure in the gaming scene, and he's sort of seen as like this sort of gaming god designer. He's always taking pictures with famous people, and he seems to be collaborating with so many different people all the time, and he's turned into like a real legend. And I just always, I guess in my mind, dreamt that he would end up being that kind of person, and now he is. So I would say that would be my hipster contribution to this question.
All right, so I'm going to counteract that and say Kojima's full of shit. His games suck. He's full of himself, and anybody that buys his stuff has brain damage. Maybe not the last part, but because then it implies you have brain damage, and I don't want to be that mean to you.
Right.
But seriously, though, I just I try to keep an open mind. Maybe I don't try hard enough. But,
possibly.
But I don't get it anymore. I really enjoyed Metal Gear Solid 1. That's a game that I wouldn't mind going back and replaying to address the previous question. But I have no interest in going past that.
Well, I think that's exactly what I was getting at before that I couldn't quite get out. Is like there is this camp of Metal Gear fans that loved 1, but anything before or after that is completely overlooked by certain people. And that's fine. Because Metal Gear Solid 1, if you read my latest editorial, shameless plug.
It's a cool game.
It's a cool game, and it really did kind of start it all because it was super popular. I mean, there are so many different reasons, but there are so many people that I've encountered that really enjoy that first game and really have no interest in talking about the other ones. And that's where I get kind of hipsterish and I start defending the other games and trying to say that they're crucial to the storyline, and in a lot of ways they really are. But I think that you can get away with playing 1 and not playing the others and still have a great experience.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So that does it for our mailbag. Here we are 51 minutes later.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So thank you to everybody that sent in questions, comments, and stuff for the mailbag. We really appreciate it. Swing out by our Discord room and join in the fun and let us know if you have anything on your mind so we can talk about it on the air next week.
Yeah.
So, since that took a lot longer than I thought it would, we have a couple other topics that we wanted to hit on. Why don't we start with you, Will? I hear... it says, according to our notes, that you parted with some games here. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. So I have been wanting to let go of some PS1 games for a while. I've been on and off about it. Yep, I know.
What?
I know. Let me just finish. I know I'm just burying myself here. I've been wanting to let go of certain ones for a while, right? And I managed to split up 2 different sections of them, like one games that I'm truly willing to let go of, and then other ones that I just feel compelled to keep. And long story short, I ended up getting rid of all of them. I sort of regret doing one stack because there was a couple in there that were just in such good shape, but I did get a good price for them, and they're gone. I just have to pack them up. Technically, I could cancel the whole thing, but then I would probably get a bad rating on this particular app that I'm using, so I'm not going to do that. But outside of that, though, I have not parted with any other games. It's just some older PS1 games that have been sitting in a box that I have been saying for years that I would get around to playing. And mind you, I bought these games in 2003 when I was working at EB Games. So, yeah.
I just want to know why you didn't talk to me first, especially when at one point you were going to sell me those games anyway.
I know. You know what it is I think subconsciously I didn't want to burden you with more games when you have a GameStop in your house.
Yeah, but some of those games that you had were not part of that GameStop, and I could have used them for the collection.
Hey, I could cancel the order. It would be 2 orders, but I'd have to cancel both of them, yes.
That's heartbreaking.
I think you'll live. But the reason why I was able to justify this is, 1, I'm not touching them anytime soon. 2, they're physical, materialistic items that I'm trying to let go of. And 3, if I do want to play them, I can scoop them up in digital format on the PS3. So that's kind of what led me to finally let go. But honestly, I do feel good about it. I got rid of a lot of stuff, and video game related, that was it.
Okay. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you picked up a copy of Battlefield 5.
I did. That was an interesting situation. I mean, sort of, but not really. Basically, Joe has it. A few other friends of our Battlefield community have it as well. They just haven't been playing it. And as I mentioned before, it's a game that none of us were really playing, but Joe kind of inspired me to pick it up. And we've been having issues with BF1, as everybody knows. So basically, it was just inevitable that we were all going to get it. And did have to pay $40. Was it 40? Yeah, it was $40 digital copy. I couldn't find it for less unless I bought a physical. And yeah, it's good. I played about, I think, 3 or 4 games, did quite well, surprisingly so, because it's a little bit different, and I'm not too sure how to define that yet. But one thing I noticed is the game does not have the way that the game is designed, just in terms of like menu systems and the layout and the theme of Battlefield 5 is definitely World War II. And they've implemented women in the game again, because they did that in BF1, I think. We haven't confirmed that yet, but BF5 was kind of big because they were making a big emphasis on women soldiers. And I think there was something to do with like prosthetic arms were involved or something, not entirely sure. But I can say that what I don't like about it is the theme of the game is sort of like, this is hard for me to describe, but like when you're in the menus and you're looking at your character, you can customize your character in different outfits and stuff, which is fine. But there was a grit and a sort of rawness with Bad Company 2, Battlefield 2, Battlefield 3, and then BF4 and BF1. BF1 introduced a little bit of what I call like a fresh face mentality or theme. And what I mean by that is like the character models are a little bit like younger and fresher looking. And this is only going to make sense to people like Joe and Raph and the Battlefield people. Because Battlefield 3, for example, there wasn't a lot of exposure on faces, like on the character models. Like everything was just kind of like, and if you did see their face, it was very stoic and grim, and it had a little bit more grit to it. The whole feeling was sort of dark and mysterious and sort of like, I don't know, the color combos were good, and all that stuff like matters, I think, to Battlefield people, at least for me. And with Battlefield 5, it has like a modern, fresh look, like where the soldiers' faces look like they used fucking Olay like night cream. You know what I mean? Like it's just like they're taking like cucumber slices to the eyes. They're doing mud face masks.
Jeez.
It's too like, it's so hard to describe. But if you were watching me play it and watching me navigate the menus, I'd be able to explain it a little bit more where it would make sense to you. But there's an overall freshness that takes away from the grittiness of the war. And I think even just the maps and the way that everything's laid out just seems a little bit more brighter, and there's a big theme on blue, like the sort of sky blue theme. So I'm nitpicking, but like that's one thing I don't really like is in terms of the gameplay itself. It does feel like Battlefield, so everything seems to be relatively the same. I'm still exploring gunplay and how the guns work and which classes are working best for me. So I kind of just went with a basic medic, which is kind of my go-to class, and sort of dominated in Conquest, and just try to get a good overall feel for it. I like it. Certainly don't hate it by any means. I'm in a nitpicking phase, and I'm looking for things that might be a problem, looking for things that I like, and overall, I'm glad that I have it, and I'm hoping that we can carry the torch over.
Fair enough. Well, I'm excited to hear where your journey with this game goes.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, man. I'm a big Battlefield fan, as you know, and it's good to kind of have that camaraderie slowly coming back.
Yep. I mean, you guys have done a couple game nights with BF1 at this point now, and I think the biggest issue was, finding people to play against, from what you were telling me. So this is the latest Battlefield. Should have a pretty thriving community.
Yeah, it definitely does. I had no problem finding a game, which was really refreshing because obviously in BF1 it's quite stale. Yeah.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Certainly.
So, I did not buy Battlefield. That is not a game for me. But I did pick up Civ VI a couple weeks ago, or about a week
for the
ago.
Switch, right?
Yep. It was on sale for the Switch for $15. I got Best Buy to price match it, sent it to my house, and I haven't had as much time to play with it as I'd like. But I gotta say, so far, it's been a lot of fun. Have you ever spent any time with any Civilization games?
I have not. I remember watching people play them years ago on PC.
Yeah.
Back in like the sort of Command and Conquer days, and where I feel like those kind of strategic games were a little bit more popular. A lot of what I call like, mouse clicking kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really don't have a lot of experience with it. Tom does. So if Tom's listening, he can certainly comment on this particular section.
I've played every Civ since Civ 3 on the PC, except for this one. I haven't played this one on the PC, Civ 6. But 3, 4, and 5, I've put a decent amount of time in. I think 5 was probably the one I put the least amount of time in because, I was working. So, like, this is definitely not the type of game that you want to, like, let rope you in because, that whole adage of, oh, just one more turn, and then it's like, 6 o'clock in the morning. That is not made up. That has happened to me. It does happen to Civ players. That's a real phenomenon that you have to be conscious of. I think they did a pretty good job with this game in making it something that kind of splits the difference between PC and console. I feel like they're taking some of the tips and tricks that they did with like Civilization Revolutions, which is a console-only game, and kind of folding them into the franchise, the main franchise proper. So it definitely feels like it's more optimized for the console, but I still find myself wishing I had the mouse and keyboard. Just something about a Civilization game like this. It feels more... it's not even so much about the interface or the controls themselves, but more about the interface and kind of like navigating what's on the screen. You know what I mean? Like taking a look at what units you have in a certain tile or what research you're exploring, what civics you're working towards, things of that nature. It's a little difficult to kind of navigate on the controller itself. The Switch does support the touchscreen on it, which I really have not used much of. I've been sticking mainly to playing on the television or playing with the Joy-Cons. But overall... Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's been a pleasant experience. I'm kind of looking to spend some more time with it when I have time. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. I'd love to, I'd love to check it out on YouTube or see you play it and just kind of see it live on the Switch because, I am a pretty big proponent of a game like that not really being on a console really at all, or even a handheld for that matter. But I will say, kind of hearkening back to a lot of things I've said about the Switch, it's nice to see different experiences like The Witcher 3 and more AAA titles and stuff like that come to the Switch, and they're proving that they can do it.
Right.
And I think with a game like Civ 6, it's pretty impressive because that game, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And when people think of those games, they channel that same memory that I have, which is like mouse and keyboard.
Right.
Dude, I remember kids playing those kind of games with that mouse that had like the little red wheel on it.
Oh yeah.
Those kind of mice that like they stay put, but you just use the wheel. Like,
yep.
I used to remember like back in the like late 90s, like early 2000s, like kids just like masters with that wheel, dude. Flicking it around with the thumb and stopping it just in time and clicking, and there was a lot going on, and it's impressive to think that there were some pretty skilled people even back then.
You're talking about like the trackball.
Yeah, the trackball kind of mice.
Yeah. I remember
there's
those.
so much skill, and speaking of skill, we should make that an episode topic one of these days. Video game skill.
Okay, I like that. We'll have to jot that down in Trello.
Yeah. Certainly, because there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of techniques that I'd love to talk about.
The only downside that I've experienced with Civ on the Switch so far is there is a super long load time getting into the game. Well, because you have to consider that most times you're playing on a large map with, anywhere from 16 countries or more, and each one has their own units that they're loading up. So it's the initial load to get into the game while the world generates and all these countries kind of get in place and everything. That's pretty significant. I mean, we're talking minutes. You could get up, make a sandwich, and come back, and it'll be ready. And it waits for you. It doesn't like just throw you in and you're fucked. But once the game does that initial load, smooth as butter. No issues, no loading time. Part of the process of Civ is, you wait for the other cultures to take their turns. That's very speedy, very responsive. So I think overall a pretty positive experience. I was concerned that it might not be. And apparently, I have not had an opportunity to test this, but apparently you can save your game to the cloud on the Switch and then resume it on the PC. Pull it from the cloud, play it on the PC, save that on the cloud, and then take it with you on the Switch again. As long as you have
That's cool.
As long as you have internet access. So I think that's pretty neat.
I could see Civ 6 being fun to play on the Switch, like in a nice quiet room.
Yeah.
Quiet room, couple candles lit, that kind of scene.
Yeah. I agree.
Shit, even at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just like a couple cats in the room, some purring's going on. You got, a couple like freshly made chocolate chip cookies on a porcelain plate, and you got your Civ 6 going. I'm telling you, man, you can't argue that is a good situation to be in.
It sounds like a great situation. Actually, you know what I think might take it to the next level is sitting in a hammock in my backyard with that same plate of cookies and a beer.
Okay.
And the Switch.
Okay. That's respectable.
You don't like that?
No, well, what okay, so there's two problems with this.
Okay.
There's two. Okay, we got flaws. So I'm worried about the beer and the cookies, number one.
Okay.
Because that seems like a weird combo.
Well, we can mix it up.
Okay, fine. And then the second problem is you better be under a goddamn shady tree because that glare is going to be real.
Well, why would you put a hammock in anywhere else than a shady tree?
Hey, man, I'm just concerned about the God rays.
I know you don't go outdoors, but
yeah, I'm a vampire, folks.
Oh God. One other thing for me is I have bought Doom 2 and Doom 3 twice now in the past week.
Jesus.
So the Xbox store had a sale on the classic Doom series. Doom 1 was like $1.99 or $1.50 or something. Doom 2 was the same price, and then Doom 3 I think was double that, so like $4. And I've been kind of wanting to pick them up on the Switch for a while, and I have not seen the sale. I was waiting for the sale. Finally showed up in the Xbox. I'm like, for this price, fuck it, I'll grab them. Part of the reason I want to get them is Doom 3 is supposed to be kind of enhanced for the Xbox One X, and Doom 1 and 2 allow you to play some custom levels that weren't part of the original official release. So John Romero's Sigil is in there. You can play that. Some of the kind of bonus stages, like the master levels, those were released as well, too. So it's a pretty nice package. It's not just the base game. You're getting a lot of Doom, especially for that price. So this went on sale, and I'm like, all right, fine, I'll buy it on the Xbox. It's never going to be on sale on the Switch. And then finally, literally the day after, it goes on sale on the Switch for the same price. And I'm like, well, fuck it, I'll buy it there too.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say.
I'll play them. I mean,
it's
Doom.
Gamer, you.
But you know what, though, man? Like, I'm really having a hard time getting my hands comfortable with the Switch version of the game. Those Joy-Cons, I just...
I'm not a huge fan. Like, when I look at the Switch, it's great, but it is a little bit odd for a guy like you and me that generally have larger hands, and it just feels a bit small at times. It's weird. Like, it's like I wouldn't say it's a love-hate relationship with them, but it's like a sort of like a like and not always like kind of situation. It's weird. It's hard to sum that one up. It's kind of another discussion, but it certainly has an effect on the game that you're playing. It
depends on the games, I think, wholeheartedly. With Doom, there's no up and down looking, at least on Doom 1 and 2. Doom 3, you do get full 360 degrees of looking. But it doesn't matter. The way the joysticks are situated, so you're using the right thumbstick to look, the left thumbstick is your motion. And that would be fine on its own. But the way the Switch is laid out, those joysticks are so split from each other vertically that it just throws off everything. And I'm used to the PlayStation where they're on the same like horizontal plane with each other. If you look at the PlayStation controller and then you look at an Xbox One controller, the analog sticks are different, but not so drastically that it's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And then now put the Switch next to that. And whether you're playing it with the controllers docked on the Switch or you're playing with the controllers onto that little plastic joysticky thing that it comes with, it sucks both ways.
Dude, can you imagine playing Doom 3 with the Duke controller from the original Xbox?
They do sell an Xbox One version of the Duke. They do. I would kind of want to try that now.
It just seems right, Doom is such a beefy game, that it would be kind of cool maybe to play on something like large like that.
Yeah.
Just a random thought,
No, I like it. I like where you're going with that.
Makes sense, everything about Doom is just like the chugging of that guitar and the beefed up steroid-ridden fucking Doom guy and, Doom Eternal, man. Oh man, I'm kind of excited for it, man. I'm not gonna lie. That video sold me that you sent me.
I am really surprised to hear you say that. I didn't think that would be on your radar.
It's like a little bit of a sort of modest excitement statement from me. One that's not very common.
I was talking with Dave, Epic Outro, earlier today, and he asked me, he's like, are you guys going to do anything special for Doom Eternal for the release? And I flat out told him, I'm like, well, Will doesn't really play, Doom like I play Doom. Like, he hasn't played 2016, so I'll probably be the only one playing it when it comes out. So you just blew my mind.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of like this idea of us both playing it.
I like that too.
And then like we share stories like once a week. Maybe we do like a little Doom segment. And it's like a little update on what's going on in the game. I don't know. We'd have to figure out a way to like not spoil it for people either. That's pretty key.
Well, I mean, if we do it at the end of the episode, I could always put a time stamp in there or just say spoilers from here on out and people could just shut us off.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We'll talk it out offline.
Yeah, this is interesting.
I'm
engaged.
Me too. Well, on that note, we are running long, so let's wrap it up, man. Anything else you want to talk about before we call it a night?
WDGRPodcast.com. Check out our Discord, and you can follow Drew at ScionStorm and me at Will_Gear, only on Twitter. And that's all I got.
You did it all for me, man. I don't even have to say another thing.
Unintentional.
So, I love it. You're going to host next week.
Sure.
Cool. It's going to be fun. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya.